Hi there, in this tutorial we will look at how to make a custom ornament using the 3D modeling software Tinkercad and Canva. You need no experience at all to do this simple tutorial. So you can go to the Tinkercad app or the Tinkercad website, either one. You'll sign in as a student with your Google account. When you create a project, you're going to do 3D. And if you look in this YouTube description, I actually have a link to the template for the ornament if you want to skip one step ahead. But if you want to see how I created the outline of my ornament, this is what mine looks like. I used the ring shape to make the outline of the ornament, and the ring shape is down here. But there are several different shapes that would work just fine for this. Mine is 3.5 inches in diameter. If I tap my shape one time, by the way, I just dragged and dropped this shape on there. And if you tap the white boxes, you can see the size. So I changed the shape to 3.5 by 3.5. And then I can just use the arrows to move it back onto the work plane. All right, I also don't want it to be too tall because I'm going to 3D print this thing. So if I tap the center white box, I can see how tall. I'm going to make mine just a little bit less tall. I'm going to do it at 0.2 inches. Okay, then I added a little loop to hook the ornament hook into, so you could use, again, any of those ring shapes. And I made mine much smaller. I said, let's make this about 0.4 inches by 0.4 inches. And I want the height to match, so zoom in on that. And we'll make that 0.2 like I did the other one. As if I want to join these two shapes together into one shape, I need to move it. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key to make it move quickly while I use my arrows. And rather than try to guess, I'm actually going to align this. If I hold down the Shift key, I can select that object and this object. And then if I go up here to this shape right here, this allows you to align. So I want this shape here to be aligned center with this shape, so I'm going to choose this black dot. So now it's perfectly aligned that way. So now I just kind of need to move this. I'm going to move my view a little bit. I can use this box here to change my viewpoint. Perfect. Okay, so now I just need to move it just a little bit. It doesn't need to be totally overlapping, but it needs to have enough overlap that when I merge them together, it won't break off when I try to 3D print it. So it looks pretty good. There's enough connector tissue there. Okay, so last step is I'm going to select that object and that object. And I'm going to use the grouping tool, which is up here, to group them together into one shape. You'll know it worked because when you click out of it, everything will be the same color. So now that's one object. And if I try to move it around, it all moves together. So now I'm ready to add the custom font. There are letter shapes in Tinkercad, but they're really basic and they're not, to my mind, a very pretty font. So here's where the hack comes in. You're now going to go over to Canva. And in Canva, you're going to create a monogram or other text that you're going to then import into Tinkercad. So make sure that you're using text box, not elements. I tried it with shapes and I tried it with graphics and it doesn't work. You're going to add your whichever text box you want, whatever font you like. The main thing with the font is it does have to be touching, otherwise you can't 3D print it. It'll kind of fall apart because there's not anything connecting parts together. You can search for the word calligraphy to see a lot of the fonts that kind of flow nicely. So in my case, I made a monogram. And I didn't want to do a whole name, and I just did each of these as a separate text box because I wanted to be able to move them together and overlap them. And I made my last name initial much larger. So once you have everything kind of touching the way you want it to and the font you like, the last step is to export. So I'll click Share and I'll click Save As. And this is the part that will be new for you. You're going to change PNG. You're going to switch it to SVG. This is a file that can be read by 3D modeling software and laser cutters. So I'm also going to make sure I say transparent background. I do not want this background. I'm going to hit download and I'm going to save this file to save to files. Great. So now I can head back to Tinkercad and I'm going to go to import choose File, choose File, and pick that file that I just did and hit Import. This may take a few seconds. It will probably come in too big, totally fine. We can adjust the size by numbers if you'd like. But you can also drag and drop those corner pieces. And then we're just going to move it into place in the center of the ornament. The goal here is to have it touching enough spots, not to be overlapping and hanging out the sides, but also to touch the sides of the ornament enough that there's something for it to stick to, and that way it's not a separate part that falls through the middle when you 3D print. So it looks like I need to go just a little bit bigger. I could also see if I kind of move to the side that it's too tall. So I'm going to go ahead and make this 0.2 inches tall like my ornament. And now everything will lay flat. Okay, so last step, I'm going to group it all together so it's one object. So now I have one big ornament, and I need to export this so it can be 3D printed. So if I click Export and I choose this STL file, this file can be sent to any 3D printer for 3D printing, including the libraries. So if you want to stop by the library or email this STL file to me at ecolby@vermontschools.org, we can 3D print it for you for free. And then you'll have a really cool keepsake ornament that you can keep or give away.